This is episode number 28 of the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to uprev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Today on the UpRev Ninja podcast, I interview Stephanie Morgan. Stephanie's role as Director of Learning Solutions at Bray Leano Learning combines her extensive experience in delivering exceptional learning with her passion to help women aspire to board level. Her personal experience and natural honesty, passion, clear thinking, and sense of humor supports her mission to help individuals and organizations grow through developing and challenging themselves to be better. Her career has given her a complete learning and development knowledge base, which she continues to develop and hone in order to share her expertise. Stephanie is a confident and engaging speaker and has encouraged many individuals to initiate change in their organization. Welcome, Stephanie Morgan, to the UpRev Ninja podcast. Hey, Stephanie Morgan, welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, thank you. It's absolutely great to be talking to you, Tom.
I know we had a couple of technical difficulties there, but hey, we figured it out, didn't we?
You're a ninja when it comes to technical difficulties. I was very impressed.
Oh man, it can be frustrating and annoying, but at the same time, I've still got a smile on my face. So I'm super excited to talk to you today. Something you don't know about me is my undergrad is in organizational development, and I've done a lot of work in the L&D space over the course of my career. So when I read this, I was like, ooh, interesting, because I always have an awesome time connecting with and talking to people in your industry. And your bio that I've already read to the audience, you talked about humor and you used the word individuals and then organizations, and I was reading on, I believe it was your website, how, or maybe it was Twitter, how you're talking about, how important it is for, organizations and stuff to also focus on managers. They're the leaders of, the most important asset a company has. And I just really valued that. So, so first off, thank you for that. And I'm excited about this interview.
Well, thank you too. I think managers are the hidden key to productivity and well-being and all other sorts of things in the workplace. If we look after our managers well, then I think we will be able to do great things.
Awesome. Well, tell me about how did you get to where you're at today? I mean, did you just wake up one day and ooh, this is what I want to be when I grow up?
Not quite. Not quite as straightforward as that. Well, I'm from a place in the UK. Actually live in Wales, so I'm Welsh, and I live in quite an industrial part of South Wales. So at the moment, I can look out the window and I can see the sea, and the sun is shining on the sea. It's absolutely beautiful today. But when I was growing up and when I was in education, thinking about what am I going to do as a career, when I was growing up, that wasn't really a word that we would use in relation to women, which is quite sad. And also because I live in an industrial part of Wales, the main industries were coal mining and steel production. In fact, steel production is still a very large part of the town in which I live now.
Wow.
So that also wasn't really a place for women to work, and certainly not to have a career. So when I did start in the workplace, I actually got a job in a government department. And I was really happy about that because there weren't really that many choices for me. And that felt like a really good, positive, safe, job for life sort of place to be.
Right.
Yeah. And I say that now without laughing, but it's quite funny, isn't it? Really?
It is, yeah.
To think that anyone ever thought that there was a job for life is quite hilarious really now. Anyway, that was back in the day. And actually, I did really well there. And that's where I got my taste for and my love of learning and development. That's where I first started out with, those of you who know anything about learning and development, with face-to-face training and really helping people develop themselves in order to do their jobs more effectively. And I don't think I've really left that. I absolutely solidly believe that every single person has that golden nugget within them, and it's just for us to help them see it and let it shine, and they can all do great things. And certainly if you can help them do that in work, it is such a win-win. It really, really is. So that's where I got my love for learning and development. I've got 2 children. They both still live at home. They're very comfortable here. I can't see them going in the short term. And I've been very happily married for quite a very long time now, which again is quite rare. So that's why I'm mentioning it.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's I'm very, very lucky. I'm very, very lucky. So as you've read out in my bio, I'm a director now of a learning business, and I've had a whole career really in learning and development. I've worked with lots and lots of different organisations, and one that I think people around the world would know would be British Airways, but we work with lots of fantastic, fantastic companies. And basically what we do is we design and deliver absolutely brilliant corporate learning solutions, really. So I've come from being at the coalface myself, excuse the pun, as I mentioned mining earlier, with actually doing the work, to now leading and managing the business of a team of people who design and deliver for us. So it's been quite a long journey, really.
Well, I'm sure it's been not only a long journey, but just a fruitful, and obviously you're doing something now that you connect with, and you get to connect with all sorts of people, and and numerous people and new people on probably a daily basis. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the difference, that's what I love about it all, is the difference on the surface, but underneath it, when you lift up the hood, we're people. At the end of the day, we all want to be healthy and happy and to do a good job, because I absolutely believe that people, even if they don't act like they want to do a good job, they usually do want to do a good job. We want to have pride in what we do.
Right.
So when you look under the hood, at the end of the day, we are people, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And, even in your bio, you there were, a couple of keywords that stuck out, around, what were natural honesty and passion and, just clear thinking. And yeah, I think that's, I mean, you people could say those are buzzwords, but, I think when you start to say that, like in a bio or a mission statement, you say it enough times, that becomes who you are and the message that you're trying to get across. And when you do that in one facet of your life, it bleeds over into other facets. So, I'm like, ooh, I'm excited, because I don't typically interview people about their careers. Sometimes that's what it is, but all of that has to feed over in your personal life too. The honesty, clear thinking, passion, helping people grow, help people become the best version of themselves. And that's what I'm all about. So
cool.
I'm stoked. So Stephanie, so what about, you kind of did that, run through of your career and where you're at today. And did you ever have like that light bulb moment that just kind of went off when you said, ooh, this is definitely, this strikes a chord with me?
Well, it's interesting that you use the word light bulb, because mine wasn't really a light bulb moment. Okay. What happened to me was I'd worked in that government department for quite some time, and I'd enjoyed it to a certain degree and had done reasonably well. And almost one day, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I was sitting at my desk one day and I looked up, and instead of seeing what was actually in front of me, other people doing their work, what I saw was my future in front of me. And I thought, I'm getting goosebumps just remembering it, really.
Yeah.
Actually, if I stay here, I'm probably going to be doing something similar forever and ever and ever. And instead of seeing me flourishing and growing, I almost had this picture of me getting smaller and smaller. And I don't know if you have prunes. Do you know what a prune is?
I do, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, okay. I was like seeing myself shrivel up over time instead of blossoming, but shrinking. And I just knew that if I stayed there, I would just wither away. And that was it a revelation at that moment? I tell it like it happened all in one go, but it really wasn't all in one go. That took some time you sort of had a prickly feeling one day that this wasn't right, and then another moment of realization. I didn't necessarily have a light bulb moment right there and then, but once my pot was stirred, there was like no going back.
Right.
And at that time, given where I live and what choices I had, I actually didn't think I had any choice. I thought I was going to have to stay. I've got children, we've got a mortgage, there isn't much choice of employment where I live, so I'm trapped. That's how I felt for quite some time, to be honest.
I think that's common with a lot of people, especially, and kind of going back to what you mentioned earlier. I'm going to get this job and stay there for the rest of my life, like, maybe our parents or grandparents did that, and that was kind of the norm. And that doesn't necessarily happen anymore today. It's like the inverse has happened. But now we've got these new challenges. Like, okay, I've got a family and we're used to vacationing, going on holiday, all these things. And then you're like, ooh, if I leave my job, my whole world gets turned upside down. So can you walk us through that? Like when you started going through that process, right?
I did, and what's interesting is it's not you anymore, is it? So I'm not just solely responsible for me, so I wasn't doing this just for me. And there's lots of emotions that I went through anyway. So one, which recurs actually, is about being selfish. Am I being selfish here? Is this am I just greedy? Do I want more than I deserve? Those sorts of things. And practically as well, how will we manage? What will we do? But the deciding factor for me was when someone gave me what's called the rocking chair test. I'm sure you've heard of this.
Actually, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
Okay. So it's when you're sitting on your porch, as you would probably call it, where you are.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting in your rocking chair, looking back on your life and thinking about what's made you happy and what have you achieved. And it was a bit like my looking forward scenario. It's just like I can't live with myself if I get to that point, and I haven't done something. I owe it to myself and therefore my family to do something that will help me grow, not help me wither.
Right.
It's not what you want, and it's a win-win really. And almost now I'm sort of still trying to convince myself that it is a win-win, Stephanie. It is a win-win, but it is a win-win. That if I'm happy, they will all be happier. And it's not that I'm without talent. I have got talent, and I had talent. And, so I almost had to give myself this talking to get myself up and going, and literally to make a decision. And then, which not everyone is like this, I realize, but for me, I almost like snapped. So then it was like, right, I definitely can't stay now. So instead of getting a really good plan in place, I just thought, I'm going to resign and just go self-employed for a bit and see what happens. And if I need to get another job, then I will. And if I don't, then I won't. And so back then, which is about 17 or more years ago, to leave a government job. I mean, when I told my colleagues, their mouths just dropped open. They thought I was completely mad.
I'm sure.
The pension, the security, completely mad. But
Right.
It was like, no, it would be madness to stay for me.
Right.
It's not madness to go. And once I got to that position, it's almost like a weight is taken off of you. The indecisiveness is the worst when you're not sure and when you're not convinced of it. As soon as I was decided, it got easier and easier.
Well, I can imagine what that's like. I mean, even here in the States, that happens. Oh, you work for, the city or state or, even federal level, whatever, because for the most part, you're guaranteed,
Yeah. You've got to do something really silly to, not stay there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's definitely, it's the same thing here. So when you were going through that process, or I guess even just outside of that, just through your life in general, is there something that's kind of, I don't know, always held you back? I think you kind of touched on it, like maybe it was, I don't know if it was a, confidence or, you kind of started alluding to something earlier about you didn't feel like you could move forward. So, was it shame, embarrassment, fear,
Well, fear is definitely one of my recurring nemesises. Is that
Yeah.
the right word? So I was frightened to leave the safety of that. I was frightened about what the outcome would be, and quite often I can feel fear even when there's nothing to be frightened of. I think that reptilian brain, much as it's trying to look after us, it can be quite inconvenient in this modern world. So, and what I find for me personally is it can paralyze me into doing, what's the word? Indecision and procrastination.
Right.
But it can also drive me too. So what I've learned over the years, really, and the way that I manage my own fear, is I expose it. So I try and look it in the eye and say, "Are you real?
Right.
Do you really exist? Is that absolutely true? If it is true, what can I do about it? Can I mitigate some of that risk? Can I plan for some of that? Can I do something about it?" So I'm really quite good now at looking fear in the eye and going, "Yeah,
That's
you're a
awesome.
shadow. You're not reality necessarily." That's not to say I don't still feel the fear, because I do. I think it's, I've tried lots of techniques to try and get rid of the actual feeling, but I don't let it take over from me. And so I do a very good swan. Have you heard that saying?
have. Yeah.
Yeah, I can be paddling underneath, but look quite calm on the outside.
That's funny.
And I think the more skilled I am, so when I take it apart, if I think actually I actually can do this, then I can make the fear look less. If I don't feel skilled or equipped to face it, deal with it, whatever, then I almost need to go back and say, well, that's a different matter altogether. I'm not going to put myself in danger, even if it's only figuratively so. I might need to get some skills in order to be able to do that thing. So, for example, I absolutely love public speaking, and I've done quite a lot of it, but not to a huge audience. So I deliberately volunteered to do what's called an Ignite session. I think you might have them.
Yeah, I actually had just emailed someone this morning about doing this in a HR. Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, but yeah, it's 15 slides, 15 seconds each or something like that?
Absolutely. And I nailed it, I have to tell you.
Awesome.
I absolutely loved it, and I nailed it. And I know that sounds, yeah, but I did. And so that was me. I had the skill. I was still frightened, on the night. I was like, why have you done this? Are you mad? You didn't need to. But in the moment, as soon as I got on the stage and I was doing what I love, and I think I'm really quite good at it, it didn't matter. The size of the audience was irrelevant, really.
Right.
And so, but that was me. I had to do that analysis first. Do I think I can do it? Have I got the skills for it? What am I really frightened of? Before I could decide how to take myself through that and move forward.
So it sounds like, yeah, and I kind of want to get into this, but it sounds like you did a lot of this internally. Did you have support? Did you talk to friends, family, coworkers, or anything like that, or a coach, or was this all internal, like strength that you used?
Well, I have over the years built a fantastic support network, absolutely
Great.
Fantastic. And I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. I've spent a lot of time really looking at my own emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm aspiring to be an authentic leader, and to be an authentic leader, you really, really need to be in touch with yourself and know how other people are impacting you, what other things are impacting you, and be able to manage that and also be there for other people. So for me, this is quite a long journey, but certainly to do that Ignite thing, I had a lot of support. I had support from my colleagues, and I've got some fantastic friends, one of whom is a coach. And
that's great.
Yeah, and I definitely, why wouldn't I ask for help if I needed it?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, and that's great. And I've talked to people, and some people, they just have that. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to call it inner strength, because that implies that the people that do have to go outside, it's a weakness. So I don't want to say that, but some people, they just they have those skills already built internally, and they can do that. I try to do that and I fail. So I always have to go ask for help, and I'm perfect. I'm very good at that now. I used to not be so good. I'm from Texas, so trying to, sharing that you need help is not, very natural to me.
No. But to me, it's a little bit like luck. The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes.
And this resilience, as you're probably really talking about, and this inner strength,
Yes.
I get more inner strength the more I work on myself. And then I'll come across a situation that I haven't encountered before, and I almost go back 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Right?
And I think, oh no, here we are. This is different. This doesn't feel the same. That the skills I use then won't work here now because I feel differently about it.
Right.
And then I make those decisions about, do I need to ask for support? Do I just give myself a good talking to, or whatever it might be?
So what about what do you do to kind of keep your axe sharp? Like tips, tricks, hacks, that you just kind of do on a daily basis or a frequent basis to keep sharp?
Well, one of the things that I do is decide whether what's happening or my reaction to what's happening belongs to me or not. So I spent a lot of time taking the blame for things, or feeling responsible for things, or acting a bit like a victim, oh, this always happens to me. So I don't do that anymore, or not very often anymore. So when any emotion comes up for me, I try and look at it and decide, does this belong to me or someone else?
Right.
And if I'm clear that it belongs to someone else, I'm really good at letting it go. I don't harbor it at all. And if it belongs to me, then I look at what I can do about it. And almost it feels like I'm spring cleaning on a regular basis. So I'm not building up stuff that needs to be dealt with. And that might just be me because I'm action orientated. I'm not a big reflector. I've got friends who are real deep reflectors, and they will analyze what people said and the tone that it was said in and what they might mean by that. So I don't go into that much detail, I have to admit, so maybe it doesn't impact me to the same degree, but I do know if I'm upset, and I do know if I feel that things are off, but I try to only own what belongs to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely, first off, I think that's good advice and a good lens to look at things through, because, some people do, everything that's in the world they can take on, and, that's just so much stress and anxiety, and it's overwhelming for people that do that. So, and I would say I'm like you, maybe even more like I can come across as less sympathetic, with low empathy, because I'm like, because I can let it wash off of me like super quickly, and so I have to watch out like how I communicate sometimes, because then people are like, oh, you're not, you don't have any compassion, and I do. I don't let stuff that's not mine personally. It can wash off pretty easily. So.
Yeah, I got burgled many years ago, and everybody had a better burglary than me.
All right.
It's quite fascinating, really, to see how something that didn't happen to someone else, how people can take that on board for themselves.
Right.
So when I would say to somebody, "Oh my God, they say to you, "How are you?" and I go, "Oh, it's been terrible. I've been burgled." Their reaction, and you'll notice this now I've said it, to lots and lots of other things, is not, "Oh my goodness, Stephanie, how are you?" They might say those words, but in their brain they're thinking, "How would I feel about that? Right. How can what situation can I relate that back to me?" Because they need to almost like get their grounding before they can carry on the conversation. Mm. They almost have to try and put themselves in your shoes, and I just find that quite fascinating, really, in terms of back to me being, and you being much cleaner about it, how quickly people take on situations that don't belong to them, really.
And considering that's the opposite of me, that just sounds so exhausting.
Yes, I'm sure it is exhausting.
I've got very good friends that have that personality type or characteristic, and I know it is, and I just can't fathom really what that's like, because you just telling me that's, here's how these other people think. I'm sitting here and I'm just kind of sinking down in my chair as you tell me the story. Like, it's true though. Like, I'm just like, wow, I can't fathom. So
no, and people weave stories as well. I did jury service, where you go to court and you hear all the evidence and you have to decide.
Yeah.
And I could not believe how some of the jurors weaved their own story around the facts, and then would use language like, well, it's obvious, isn't it?
Right.
Hold on a minute, what was obvious about that? I didn't see
Right.
that. Tell me where you heard that in the evidence.
Right.
Oh, it's obvious. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. It's really fascinating to see how other people are operating here.
And I think what's even more so is, in the last 20 plus years, with globalization, it's even more so. Like I mentioned, I'm from Texas, but I live in New England now. So I'm 2,000 plus miles away. The cultures could not be more different. I've lived in California. It couldn't be more different. I've lived in Italy, and I've done a lot of travel across Europe. For us, that's, I don't want to say it's common, but it's a lot more common than what our parents or grandparents, had. And, some people, they're born and they die in the same town. And, that's becoming less and less. And with, technology, seeing what the world thinks, and who people vote into office, things like that, it's so different, now with, just, the whole globalization. So, we all have different lenses that we see the world through based on, the societal conditioning and our upbringing, and then you take that and then you transplant you into a different part of the world. It's night and day sometimes. So
it is. But quite often though, like my my awakening. For some people, that is the part of their awakening. They realize that that's what's happening to them, but they don't have the skills or the knowledge to change their reaction to things, and then they almost like get trapped in it.
Right.
So my strategy is not to let myself get trapped in my own, whatever it might be.
That's great.
2 examples I've given. I've got my own. I can't think of them off. We've all got our own way of getting stuck in our own spiral, whatever that spiral is. And my way of getting out of that is to look at it and decide whether it belongs to me or not.
That's great. Well, what about and this question kind of touches on that, what do you do to help you, not get complacent, to kind of get you out of your comfort zone from time to time? Is there, experiences you do? Is it traveling, sitting down and, having some tea and, just contemplating the last 5 years of your life? What do you do?
I do quite a lot of traveling, and I'm also very family orientated. So I've got quite a big family, and we do quite a lot of things together, which I really like. And I absolutely love gardening, which might be not set other people's float their boats, but it floats mine. So I just love the peacefulness of it, the hard work of it, and the results of it, really. Although they can be intermittent, but I live in hope every time.
No, I think it's great. I mean, it can be quite meditative. I'm more on the frustrated side of meditation if you get me gardening, but yeah, I cannot grow anything. So,
well, this is why I've got a marriage made in heaven, you see. So I know what I want and where it's going, and then I have my lovely labourer who hates it and is quite happy to dig a hole where he's told.
Yeah, I'm actually doing that in a few hours today. So planting some sod. So, yep. Yeah. Well, we've never fully arrived, right? We're always trying to, become a better version of ourselves. And like you said, reflecting, seeing if this, is me or is it someone else's, fear, blame, concern, or whatever, So in your life right now, Stephanie, what is it that you're currently working on trying to improve?
Well, as I've said, I've done quite a lot of self-development and certainly work on emotional intelligence. But what I've also done over the years is completely and utterly taken my physical well-being for granted, and I've not really paid much attention to how fit I am, or what I eat or drink, and things like that. And what I've come to realize is if I'm going to continue at the pace I have been going, then I need to give that a much more attention. But of course, because it's never been a priority for me, actually, that is quite tough.
Right.
So literally, it's easy, isn't it? You need to get out and move about, and you need to eat well. But actually, because it's not been my number one priority, it's been quite a challenge for me. And trying to find something that fits in with work. Well, you can hear that I've already got lots of objections.
Yeah.
So that, whilst on the surface might not sound that interesting, it's actually quite a challenge for me. And partly it comes full circle to what I said at the beginning. It's because I need to put myself first. So one of my sayings that I hold on to as I'm trying to go down this well-being route is that I need to put my own oxygen mask on first. If I'm going to do all of these things and keep the lifestyle that we've got and all of those, travel, etc., then I need to make sure that I am looking after myself. So today I definitely have been for a walk in my lunch hour.
Great.
Last week and the week before, I might not have even had a lunch hour, but today I did it, and I'm very proud.
I think a lot of people, they hem and haw about coaches, right? Career coach, fitness coach, nutritionist. There's a coach for everything out there. I think, a financial coach, all these things. But, I do believe there's value in them because you're absolutely right. I mean, we have certain aspects of our life on lockdown and we're awesome at it. But then there's other parts that we don't even know that we're neglecting until, something happens or, someone tells us, or we just have that, 5-second, flash in a pan, like, ooh, I've never paid attention to what I eat and how I treat my body. And then you're like, oh, so, and coaching is important, I think, for that, or podcast, or books, or, whatever.
I totally and utterly agree. And I'm not broken. I've realized before I've got to the point where, I've hurt myself in some way or other. So, I prefer vibrant Stephanie to tired Stephanie, and that's what I'm hanging on to. So if I want to stay vibrant, then I need to fuel this body in a way that allows me to do that.
Well, just one quick tip. When you eat, make sure it looks like a rainbow. That's what my wife tells me.
Oh, that is cool.
The more colorful the food is, if you have greens and reds and everything, then you're getting a lot of good nutrients. That's the tip that my wife tells me daily.
That is a good tip, though. It's a very good tip. Thank you.
Yeah. I won't tell you my plate usually consists of meat and white, so.
We get on well, Tom, I think.
Well, so what do you feel, Stephanie, that kind of contributes to your personal growth on a day-to-day basis, a habit that you might have?
Well, I'm quite good with boundaries. So I think that helps me on a day-to-day basis. So that sort of helps me with keeping as I say, I'm really family orientated, and that could be a stress for me, trying to balance running a business with a family and all the other things. So I'm quite good with boundaries, and that does help me on a day-to-day basis. I got into the habit of that many, many, many years ago, and I think that it's really, really stood me in good stead. And so you might not think that as so much as a personal habit, but it opens the door to all the other things that I want to be doing. So for me, it works.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it kind of makes me think now, because I have pretty good boundaries now, I'm just wondering if there's a correlation between that and how we can let things wash off of us pretty quickly. Is that our boundary, or is it a characteristic that's just a part of our personality? I'm going to have to do some research on that now. So
no, I think it's one might facilitate the other.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, because I absolutely believe, because I do a lot of work helping women, progress their careers, and boundaries is quite often the thing that would come up for many, many women. And especially in this world where we're in touch with people all the time, it's quite hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The clearer you are about your boundaries, the more choice you give yourself. So the more you can, decide whether you want to cross that boundary, whether you're going to dig in and say, no, I'm not going to cross it. So it just helps in lots and lots of ways.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so what about a piece of parting guidance to the audience?
Well, I strongly believe now, I didn't right at the beginning, but I do believe now that actually we usually have more choice than we can see in the moment. So I think that it's our life. If we don't make the choices that will help us have the life that we want, then someone else will for us. So you need to take that choice and you need to do it on purpose. So I would be thinking about why have you listened to this podcast and what inspired you to listen to it, and because you probably want to do something differently, and you definitely have the choice. You might not be able to see it now, but if you look a bit more or ask someone for help, they'll help you see it. And you might not be able to take those choices right away, but you could start to put a plan in place so that you can ultimately make those choices. So choice would be my key thing for people.
Oh, no, I like that. I think, there's a Rush song, right? I'm trying to remember now what the lyrics are, but it's something along, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's from Free Will. Yeah. So,
yeah, definitely.
And I think a lot of people are like, ooh, if I just don't make a decision, then it'll just kind of sit there. And, first off, it festers, it creates anxiety, but they still have made a decision, right? So
they definitely have.
Well, I think that's fantastic. So, Stephanie, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, on Twitter would be good. Okay. I'm Stephanie L&D. So my kids take the mickey out of me that it spells Stephanie Land, but it's learning and development. So there's 2 Ds, Stephanie L&D. And I'm sure you're going to put some contact details in the bio in terms
Totally, yeah. I'll put that out there, yeah. Well, is there anything that you're currently working on, a project or anything that you'd like to promote and, tell the audience about?
Well, I think as we started at the beginning, as you know, I work for Braille No Learning, and what we do is we help individuals and organizations develop. So I'm not sure if your audience is in that arena, but obviously we'd be love to help them if they were.
Okay.
But on a personal note, we've got a blog on personal and professional development, which gets about 4,000 downloads a month. So if anybody's interested in their own personal and professional development, they might want to look at that blog. And I've done a couple of things on what I call Me PLC. That's about taking your own career in hand and thinking of yourself as a brand. And people might like to look at that. And of course, if anybody would like me to come and talk to them or their organization about career and personal and professional development, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Great. Yeah, I'll get those, that blog and the other resources there. I'll get that and put that in the show notes.
Cool.
Definitely interested. It's something, I do with my staff, and obviously I'm doing this podcast as well. So, branding yourself, that's, I'm not a marketing person. Anyone listening to this knows that. So it's definitely an area I'm going to be working on. But so I love that type of stuff. So, thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. And, also thank you for your time today. This was definitely fun. And I love a lot of the things you talked about, the rocking chair test. And, I think one of your quotes here is, creating boundaries gives freedom. I think that's probably what I'm going to title the show. I think that's fantastic. And,
oh, that's cool.
And, so, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you.
I enjoyed that chat with Stephanie. There were a couple of good key takeaways I took away from that. One was the rocking chair test. It's where she was just looking back on her life and seeing if the things that she did, made her happy, and just around achievement as well. I do something similar, but it's like, living my life without any regret. So based on all the information I have right now, make a decision. And then, down the road, I shouldn't have any regret because I made the decision based on all the information. Sure, you're going to learn information down the road that you may have influenced or changed the decision, but you didn't have that at that time. So again, just like live your life with no regret. But then the other thing that she really said that I really loved, and I ended up naming the show this, just make sure you have boundaries, because what she ends up sharing with us was, when you create boundaries, you create freedom.
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and UpRev your life.